Right, good evening. The observant amongst you will notice that I'm not walking along the sun-kissed banks of Dorney Lake or other rowing venue, as I should be attending the Metropolitan Regatta where I was due to commentate as well on the live stream. Unfortunately, having got up at 4 a.m, and that's why these eyes look as tired as they are, my car blew up on the M1. So I, unfortunately, have not seen much racing other than being able to tune on the live stream myself while the AA recovered me to Yorkshire. Nevertheless, I think the Met is one of the best regattas in the UK. I absolutely love it because it's one of the first, I think it is the first time in the year where we start to see what the different programmes are thinking about doing into Henley Women's and Henley Royal Regatta. It's also week after Nat Schools, and for the academic programmes, we tend to see a few make it to Marlow, but by and large, a lot of the school programmes and university programmes are struggling because of exam season. So it's a good regatta to get a feel for what's going on. So I did want to do one of my rowing notebooks, but it's a notebook which contains pretty much analysis of results and themes rather than going into any of the technical sort of stuff. So without further ado, let's go on and start looking at the major events and themes of the day. Let's have a look at the men's coxless fours. So we're going to kick off chronologically, morning and then afternoon divisions. And you'll see that I did some reaction stuff on Instagram. Some of it from the back of an AA van, which was an interesting place. I'm not quite sure the driver knew what on earth I was going on about. I'm not sure you know what the hell I'm on about. I'm not sure I know what the hell I'm on about. But there we go. It happened nevertheless. But let's go for men's coxless fours. So total entry of 47 crews. So not massive, but fairly sizable. 12 in championship, 35 in club. I'm going to draw the rough assumption that the majority of those 12 crews are visitors eligible, and the majority of the 35 club crews are Yfold eligible. There will be some of the 12 who are going to be racing in the Yfold though. It was Cambridge who took the win, having also done very well in the time trial. They crossed the line at 6:15 with a 90.1%, but the crew that stands out to me in the whole of that event was a very fast Radley schoolboy crew. 6:21, which is not bad, 88.7% of senior GMT, but 93.9% of under 18 World Championship pace. So that crew is Clough, Hangzar, Sutherland and Theed. I know Clough was at the Junior Worlds last year, and I'm unclear if he's an under-19 eligible athlete again this year, but he is a world champion in this event in the junior category, so clearly adding something to that crew. And we see the Radley programme having done very well at the National Schools last week. Very well might be the understatement of the day. Doing exceptionally well again today. Fastest club crew of the day was the Thames crew, and they came in 5th position in the A final. So standout to me was Radley. And moving on to the women's 8 events, the theme of the time trial was pretty much repeated. So congratulations to Thames, Leander and Thames, who did the 1, 2, 3. Those 3 crews separated by 1.4 seconds. Then a blob is on, not a very affectionate word, I apologise, but a grouping of crews with Durham, Brooks, UL and Cambridge all within 1.8 seconds of each other. Now the name at the top of that group, not blob, that group was Durham University Boat Club. So interesting that programme is now up there above the likes of Brooks and UL and Cambridge. So something has happened there. Moving on from the results at British University Championships. Congratulations, Coach Fletcher and ladies of Durham University Boat Club. loving the fact that you're up there. And in the last few weeks before Women's Henley and Henley Royal, that we've got some really interesting stuff happening there. All the more impressive given that it's exam season and all of those academic programs are busy trying to get degrees and masters and all the rest of it. So well done to all those 4 academic program crews. Also impressive from academic program crews is the school girls 8s. No teddies this week. However, Shiplake and Headington continue to go head to head in what's panning out to be another classic year for women's junior 8s rowing in the UK. Absolutely loving it. Shiplake, 3rd in the B final with 6:38. Headington, 2nd in the C final with a 6:40. So they are separated by less than 2 seconds again. That Shiplake crew is looking flipping physical, really neat and tidy, and bags of confidence after last week at national schools, and deservedly so. Headington have obviously got a bit between their teeth, and I know Coach Domain and his women are going to be looking for every single opportunity to exploit that, close that gap. So when they get between the booms at Henley, maybe the fortunes will be will be turned again. So great on that one. Men's coxless 4s. I made the comment following the time trial that things pretty impressive there, with a very large entry, 47. So exactly the same number as the coxless event. And maybe a signal being sent to the stewards to save the Prince Albert and the Britannia Challenge Cup, the 2 men's coxed 4s events at Henley Royal Regatta. Obviously, I'd love to see those events do well and retained, but equally, we've got to move with the times. And with the women's championship, so the women's club quads having such a strong entry, I suspect the die may be cast for coxed 4 events at Henley. Maybe it's just a signal I'm getting old, not just the grey hair. I called Brooks were going to be the winner. I got the wrong Oxford. It was OUBC who took the win over London Rowing Club, and Brooks were in fact in 3rd. Of the non-academic programmes, the London Rowing Club crew who came 2nd, and then the Molesey Boat Club crew who came 6th, seem to be some way ahead of the rest of the club programmes. So it would seem to be a bit of a fight between those 2 events, those 2 programmes. We'll see who comes from overseas, and we'll see who can maybe find a little bit of speed between now and Henley. But the early indications are that London and Molesey look to be the 2 main protagonists for the Brit. The PA field looks flipping fast and tight at the top, if they all race. So we've got 8 seconds separating OUBC at the top of the men's cox 4 on from today to Imperial, who were 8th in the A final. And that's before Newcastle University Boat Club, who are racing tomorrow, but we're not racing today, turn up, and Durham, who are not putting a coxed 4 event in for this. Newcastle, looking at the early season form, I suspect that they're going to find that although they would love to have a very fast template, it looks like, based on Bucks results, that the PA is going to be the event where they stand a better chance of doing well. So we'll look tomorrow and see what happens there. And Durham as well seem to have done thus far proportionately better in 4s events than they have in the 8s events. We'll talk about the men's 8s in a moment. So it will be interesting to see how the PA situation unfolds. We know that the stewards are perhaps considering, shall we say, the sunset of these events, considering, not necessarily. So it might be the case that qualification and places available for the Prince Albert are fewer than we've seen in previous years. And if the performances that we've seen today are anything to go by, and if my supposition that fewer places will be allocated for qualified crews, it's going to be potentially a very tough event to qualify for. That said, are Oxford going to race the PA? They're far more likely to stack, in my view, the Temple or the Plate. So who knows? Right, women's quads. I've put 3 asterisks next to this event because for me it was the standout. It's a bit of a standout theme of the year. At Bucks we saw a massive entry, and we've also seen a massive entry here with I think it's something like 70% higher on last year's entry. So a big field, but clearly 2 standout protagonists at the top of the field, with Reading University winning over Molesey Boat Club. Both of those crews within a quarter of a second of each other, and then a 10-second gap back to Reading University and a Leander Club quad, who came in 3rd and 4th respectively. Quite a big delta in this event still. So while it's good to see the quantity of participation going up, we're yet to see that perhaps with the quality and depth of quality in the field. Clearly there's 2 standout performers in Molesey and Reading at the top. We expect to see Leander up there as well, we always do, but with 25 seconds gap between 1st and 8th in the A final, there's some some depth and the quality still to be found in that event. But let's focus again, like I did with the junior women's 8s, on the junior women's quads as well. There's a bit of an interesting story unfolding here. So Hartpury, who put arguably their 2 strongest athletes into championship doubles and won it a week ago at National Schools, those 2 athletes returned to the quad for Metropolitan Regatta, and they finished 8th in the A final with 88% and 92.7% of under 19 GMT. So not a bad club crew there. And I wonder to what extent that crew might now be in a position to take a bit of a fight to the likes of Marlow, who have been the standout performers thus far this year. I said last week, could this be Marlow's year? Maybe the challengers will be Hartpury. But having said that, Wycliffe posted a 94.3, sneaking a faster time than Hartpury. So Wycliffe were actually in the B final. They won the B final with a time faster than Hartpury set in the A final. So again, one of the joys of this time of year is geeking out on the stats and trying to figure out who's going to come where when the matches fall, when the chips are down. I don't really know what I was trying to say there. But there's an interesting story unfolding in women's junior quads. Also at National Schools, I saw that Sir William Perkins and Chris Boddy's programme there stacked their top athletes into the Women's Championship Coxless Fours. They won that event. They're now back in the quad. They've had a few days to really transfer, no doubt having a bit of fatigue after what was a very hot regatta as well during exam season. So there is a period of time where we're going to see that programme likely close the gap. So women's quads, whether it be senior or junior, is something to watch and something to behold. There are a couple of other events in the morning programme, but I'm going to skip forward to the afternoon programme where men's 8s battered down the course in a time trial where we had 92 8s. My maths is terrible. What's 92 times 9? because that's the number of athletes we had battering down the course. And it will not take the brains of Carol Vorderman, Rachel Riley, Stephen Hawkins, or any other mathematician to figure out that if that volume of entry turns up for the Thames Challenge Cup, for the Ladies' Plate and others, plus the overseas crews, well, it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath, right? We're going to have another example where, I don't know, 57 have to qualify and 3 will be granted a place in the draw or something like that. So that is going to be an interesting thing to see what unfolds, particularly given the relatively quiet entry for coxless fours at this event. I wonder if we're going to see some people go, oh, let's have a crack at the Y-fold. People will figure it out by Marlow. People will then rush to get entries in, and who knows? Who knows? Right, a very pacey Club 8 from London Rowing Club came second in the time trial, 93.5% of GMT. I'm not sure if that 8 is eligible for the Thames. If it is, well done. You're going to have a nice summer, I think. You're going to have a very, very fun Henley Royal Regatta. Fun in the sense you're going to spend a lot of time racing, not fun in the sense you're going to spend a lot of time in the stewards' enclosure on the booze. In the finals, Brooks won in a time of 94.7%. I'm assuming that is a plate eligible crew rather than a Temple eligible one, with the Cambridge crew coming in third behind the fancy looking London Rowing Club crew. And I'm going to assume that Cambridge crew is plate eligible rather than Temple eligible. A couple of standout performers. Great to see Bristol University getting into the A final. Largely student-led. Yes, there's some investment going in from the university there, but pretty much that's a programme which has built itself up using a bucket load of student enthusiasm, a bit of know-how, and a huge amount of effort and focus on the basics and accountability. I'm really worried I'm going to sneeze because where I live, beautiful round here, right? However, there's a bucket load of wild garlic at the moment. And for the last 7 minutes, I've been holding in a sneeze. So if I do suddenly go, I apologise in advance. So well done, Bristol University. And I think it goes to show what does it take for a student-led programme to close the gap. It doesn't take long. It takes a couple of years. But it takes a couple of years of focus and structure. It doesn't happen by chance. You've got to focus on getting the basics right. You are not entitled to good results. It comes with hard work. And that is why this sport is such a blipping good thing for young people to get stuck into, because there is no place to hide. So well done, Bristol University. I hope you keep it up. I really, really do. I also loved seeing Hampton up there, and they were probably my standout crew of the men's 8 story. They were in the final, chunking out 92.3% of senior GMT and a very respectable this is in the time trial, 97.3% of the under 18. Well done to them. They qualified for the A final. And they also put in a really good performance last week at National Skills Regatta. So lovely to see the yellow of Hampton School up there again, and particularly so given that completely bizarrely, living up in a small village in Yorkshire, the village next to me, about 3 miles that way, is where Mr. Steve Gunn lives, now coaching at St. Peter's. But arguably the mastermind of the glory days of Hampton as well. And I bumped into him at Nat Schools, and he definitely had a bit of a smile and a misty-eyed look in his face when he saw Hampton back up there where they belong. A couple of things to note from the time trial, away from the strength performances at the top end. Edinburgh Uni really seem to be struggling to bring together their 8 programme this year. If you follow social media, you'll have noticed that Colin Williamson has now moved on from there as director of rowing. I'm sure that Dale Flockhart, who is coach of the men's team there, has things well in hand. But I think it would be fair to say that both Colin and Dale were talking about this being a transition period for Edinburgh University men's sweep. They still have outstanding athletes. They still have lots of promise, and there's nothing structurally wrong with that programme. It's just, one of those years where things are transitioning. But it's important, I think, to recognise in a notebook like this that it is going on, it being a transition rather than Edinburgh being a programme which is likely to feature with lots and lots of weekend crews this year at Henley Royal Regatta. I look forward to the days when they return because I'm certain that will be the case. I think it's probably different on the women's side. This is just on the men's. Also, Durham University coming 13th in the time trial. So again, a really neat looking 8. I didn't see them today, but I've seen them quite a bit over the year. They row very long, which is great to see, but they're much less direct on the front end than some of the other programs are. And I just wonder if that is where that program has got an opportunity to jump up a few spots. But proportionately, we see better performances from Durham in the fours events thus far. So maybe we'll see them focus over there, and maybe they'll chuck their hat in the ring and make the PA even more competitive than it looks like it's going to be. Come the final of men's 8s, it was, I missed the live stream because I was getting transferred from one AA tow truck to another, my car having blown up on the motorway. Now I'm walking through a load of nettles. Good God, the things I do to bring you these stories. Goodness me. So they didn't feature on the timing sheet. I'm unsure why. And if everything I'm about to say is complete codswallop, I apologise. However, Cambridge won, Leander Club were second, Oxford Brookes University were third. So Cambridge winning in 94.6 with 1 second ahead of Leander and 1.8 back to Oxford Brookes. The much fancied Thames crew from the time trial were a respectable 5th with a 93.5%. Again, something consistent there. Consistency helps. And if they are Thames eligible, it's a London Rowing Club crew. And if they are Thames Challenge Cup eligible, this is confusing. Then they look nailed on. And Hampton I'm sure they were racing, flipping hard with a 5:51, 95.1%. So a little bit slower than the percent in the time trial, but still very respectable. And I think, given all that, we have a ball game in men's junior 8s again this year, with Hampton really mixing it up. Westminster are looking strong. Shiplake are looking strong. St Paul's are looking strong. Radley are looking strong. And I genuinely don't know, and I'm sure I've missed someone out there, and if I've missed out your programme, I apologise. But, who's going to make this call at this point? It'd be a brave person to do that. And let's have a quick reflection on the depth. So this is why I am very interested to see how the women's quads story develops. So you have 2 good performers at the top of women's quads, but a big delta between the top grouping and other clubs right now. You have to get to midway through the D final, and these are 8 boat finals, to see the first crew going above 6 minutes. And that's pretty blooming encouraging. That says that the standard of rowing in the UK is high. We know it is. We know it's high, right? So athletes, thank you. It's genuinely bloody amazing. It's stepped on so much in recent years, and I am looking forward to seeing what happens in the women's sculling events now we've got a similar structure to follow. Right, so that's men's 8s. Let's move on to the next. That's me moving back in my notebook. Give me a second. At least I'm not going to delete something this time, because I have in fact written it in my notebook, not on my phone. Lesson learnt. Let's start walking back. Right, so in the men's quads, Reading were racing, but Reading have no Matt Long because, or the other gentleman whose name escapes me because they're on international duty at the World Cup in Seville. Well done to Matt. And I have really apologised to your clubmate whose name has escaped me for earning the development boat vest out there. Looking forward to seeing your transition, hopefully, into the senior team and making that pool of men sculling even stronger. So I'm going to focus on the under 19 contingent who were mixed up in the entirety of the men's sculling events there. Of the other 19s, Leander Club topped the time trial with 95.2%. And then they were second ahead of Sir William Borlase. Leander Club, they are a crew which I really, really fancy because they scull really nicely. They look really physical. In a side-by-side, I just haven't seen them hook it up with the confidence and the application and the hand in the fire approach that I think is needed to see them maximise their potential. To see them at the top of the under 18 timesheet today was brilliant. And Borlase, who are clearly one of the top crews this year from the under 19 sculling scene, not far behind them, hot on their heels, and really, really positive to see. Sitting in the B final, Claire's Court, who I really like again. Mr. Beaver, good trialist, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can add to that crew. Tideway Scullers and Hartpury, all in the B final. So between Leander Club and Hartpury, you've got 1.1% of GMT separating all those crews. And we don't have Marlow, and we don't have local favourites, Windsor Boys School, who absolutely dominated the National Schools final last weekend, racing at Met. So let's move on to the final before I comment on the road to Henley. In the final, it was a Leander Club 1, 2, 3. So the two senior crews took A and B took first and second, with Leander Club C, the under 18 crew, crossing in 6.9, so 95%, 2 seconds ahead of Borlase, and then Hartpury with 93.8% of under 19 GMT. So, quick comment on the Hartpury crew, because they didn't really feature at national schools. One of the reasons, I suspect, is much like the women's quad, they lifted their two top scullers. In fact, their top three scullers. They put one sculler into the men's championship singles, and then Judd and Fullman went into the doubles, which they won in quite some style. So that is a new combination of a quad. Newish. They've been racing throughout the year, but they're moving back into that combination now, undoubtedly finding their feet. And I suspect Hartpury will close the gap, come up there, and they will be fighting come Henley, despite exam season, of course. So let's talk about Henley Royal Regatta and the Folly. I can't remember a time it's been this close. Windsor boys dominated Nat schools, but they've not had it all their way this year. And then you've got quite a lot of crews up and amongst them in a way that we've not seen before. And that's before the likes of Shiplake stick in their quad that they always do. I won't call it the Hail Mary quad, but it's their sort of B crew for Henley Royal Regatta. And Shiplake are not a slouchy programme, so that's going to be a fast boat as well. I've written the word bloodbath. I think qualifying is going to be an absolute bloodbath. So much like I suspect qualifying for the PA is going to be tough, I think the Folly is going to be the same thing. What a year. It's brilliant. I love it. Right, women's fours. Bit of a suppressed GMT there, possibly because many will have raced in the 8s in the morning. But what I've written down here is steering. We don't have long to go to Henley Women's Regatta. We don't have long to go to Henley Royal Regatta. And the booming good time that you can have at Henley Royal, booming disastrous time you can have at Henley Royal Regatta with questionable steering is something which I think will be hot on the minds of a few coaches, steerspeople and crewmates this evening. So maybe one of the best ways to do well in the Coxless Fours events at Henley Women's and Royal will be just to stay out of trouble with the steering. Women's doubles, brilliant to see Leander Club, Mole and Grace win that event with an impressive looking 92%. Mole is on her way back to performance following a nasty leg break around about this time last year at a training camp in a really bizarre, just slipping over on a muddy bank type accident alongside her partner Grace. So two names that are well known on the British rowing women's circuit for winning medals and putting out stonking performances. So good to see them at the top. But notable who they beat by 9 seconds into second place was Court and Tolu from Bath University, two PDA athletes. Mole herself is a graduate of the PDAs, but Court and Tolu, both April trialists from this year. Court actually finishing, I'm going to say second, it might have been third with her partner, but certainly getting a medal, getting on the podium rather for April trials. So Mole and Grace clearly turning over two strong athletes there. In the men's singles, it's largely, because if I'm honest, the percentages were again suppressed for whatever reason, but it's kind of at this stage it's about who's going to be the domestic protagonists qualifying for Henley Royal Regatta. We've got Matthews from the Edinburgh University, Josh Matthews from Edinburgh University Boat Club. He's part of the under-23 programme and trialist up there. He was winning over Ben Parsonage in second, who came in with a 704.9, which is just shy of 92%. So yeah, I imagine Ben is going to try and qualify. Josh, we will see what happens there. I suspect he will probably be pulled into some form of under-23 project / development boat. I understand that there are some mutterings about what that might be. Will it be a quad? Will it be a double? Tomorrow he's in a double with his clubmate called Freddie Foxwell. So we'll see how they go. And then today in the doubles events, we had Morris and Refford, Morris of Leeds, Refford of the Leander Club. So I wonder if there is a reality where those guys might get bolted together in a Prince of Wales development boat. Who knows? But clearly not a bad single sculler either. And I just want to put another comment on there to Gorab from Jeddah. So great to see the Saudis over again. They seem to come over yearly for Metropolitan Regatta. And I really like what's happening out there. They're developing a traditional format program as well as beach sprints over and on the Red Sea in Jeddah. I'm not sure if there's rowing elsewhere in the kingdom, but he pulled an 85% out of the bag. So a respectable percentage for a developing national rowing program there. Good to see, and who knows what will happen with that program, with the investment and the coaching that they've brought in to push that forward. I suspect the world is their oyster if they wish it to be. Right, let's have a very quick look forward to tomorrow and see what I've noted down about stuff to watch. Newcastle are turning up in the Coxed Fours, and as I suspect, they're going to find that their fours are faster than their eights proportionately. We'll see what happens there with potentially another PA eligible four throwing its hat into the ring. Another big entry for the women's quads, so let's see what happens there. What you tend to find is when you've got a fledgling event, let's call it fledgling, and I mean that with no disrespect, what you tend to see is that the learning curve is really, really steep. So I suspect that while the delta we saw today, you can't argue with the numbers, the delta we saw today was rather large between the top of the field and the rest. I suspect because of the learning curve, that delta will close quite quickly. How quickly it will close by Henley Royal this year, I don't know. I suspect not decisively. However, we've then got 12 months. Okay, so let's think about this in terms of a 15-month cycle. When we're back here next year talking about the run into Henley Royal Regatta and women's quads, I'm confident that we're going to see a real compressing of the quality in the field, and that will be great. Matthews and Foxwell in the double will be interesting. The doubles today weren't very fast. I'm not sure why, but I'll be interested to see if Matthews and Foxwell can post something. And the men's singles tomorrow, a much larger field than today, as well as featuring some big up-and-coming names. So some names for your radar: Howard from Reading, Fullman from Hartpury, Morris from Leeds, Snoxall from Reading Uni. So let's see what they can do tomorrow, what finals they're going to qualify for, and who might be putting their name in the hat for the Diamond Challenge Skulls this year and be one of the mythical, magical, much sought after domestic qualifiers. Right, that's 36 minutes. If you've stayed on this long in its entirety, then you've done very well. Maybe you should just stick it on in the minibus on the way to the course tomorrow. Maybe you'd rather listen to some proper hype up music than me prattle on. Either way, I'm enjoying bringing you these comments. Please continue to interact in the comments below. Give me your feedback on what you think about the comments that I've made. Tell me if you think there's a particular event that I should do some analysis midweek. Maybe looking at race profiles, maybe looking at technical analysis, something like that. So let's build a bit of a community. Let's make it a notebook for everyone, where we can all learn together and maybe even enjoy the waffle prattle that I am presenting. Thank you to Ted Kravitz for the motivation to do this sort of format. If you've watched Formula One, that you know that he walks around the paddock after qualifying and after racing doing something similar. He's got a higher budget, and I think he flies business class. So that's where the idea comes from. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it. And I am very sorry not to be there this weekend. If you're on the commentary team at Met, I apologise for having completely run a railroad through the commentary plan. I was supposed to be there doing, I think it was the whole day tomorrow on the live stream, but my car has blown up. It is currently in a garage, and I suspect it is terminal. However, I hope to be back on the road for Marlow, able to bring you some comments then, and hopefully Henley Women's Finals Day as well, before then moving on to Henley Qualifiers and Henley Royal Regatta. If you've got a race that you'd like me to come to, if you've got something you'd like me to do, as I say, mention. I think that's quite enough from me. I'm going to go home and have a pizza. Right, good night everybody, and go well tomorrow.